Call of Duty is a franchise that I've held near to my heart for a long while now. It's something I've considered very important to me. They've never exactly been Stephen King levels of masterpiece, but it's a franchise that means a lot to me, and it's managed to stick to me like a magnet no matter the numerous amount of times I said I'm done buying them over the years. I've been playing video games for basically my entire life, but up until World at War came out when I was 4 years old, the most I had experienced was Kingdom Hearts 2 and Ratchet & Clank on the PlayStation 2. World at War on the Wii of all things was my introduction to Call of Duty and M-rated games in general. Here I am now at 15 years old and... whoops. Oh no! Anyway, not only did World at War show off M-rated games for my at the time very innocent child brain, but it also introduced something new to the franchise for everybody else, and that was Nazi zombies, or just zombies, because you can't really say Nazi anymore, you'll get demonetized. But this was a brand new third mode for the franchise that had never had one before at that point, and zombies would become a staple to this franchise as it would go on. And the huge twist with this video is that I actually didn't get super into zombies until very recently. I always bought the newest Call of Duty whenever it came out, and I always played the campaigns from start to finish and spent hours and hours in the multiplayer making friends and memories, and while I still played zombies, I didn't pay nearly as much attention to it, and before you ask why, I honestly don't know the answer to that myself. I always wanted to get more into it and learn the story and learn the ins and outs of the maps I hadn't played as much, and what made me finally do that was quarantine, because previously my excuse was that I just never found the time. This mode had and still has a weird way of fascinating me with the weirdest things, and it also helps that I had friends that were already veterans and very familiar with these maps to go back and help me out throughout it. It was always fascinating to go back to maps I hadn't played in a while or finding things I never knew about them. With that being said, this video is obviously going to be a complete retrospective of zombies in general, and we are going in depth. I'm obviously mostly going to be focusing on Treyarch's interpretation of the mode, talking about each game in specific detail, and at the end of each section ranking all the game's maps from worst to best. Again, I'll mostly be focusing on Treyarch, but I will be dedicating a section of this video to zombies from non-Treyarch games, so stay tuned for that. This is a video I've been working on for a month, as well as a video that I've intentionally kept secret and said nothing about, but this is a video I've wanted to make for a while now, and also I have a lot to say, so let's get into this. On November 11th, 2008, Call of Duty World at War was released. It was the second major Call of Duty game that Treyarch developed, and the game took the gritty, war-torn setting of Infinity Ward's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and brought the franchise back to its root World War II setting for a brutal, tragic, and horrifying representation of the Second World War. This dark tone and representation of World War II was showed off in both the game's campaign and multiplayer, but there was a third mode that hadn't really been heard of before because it was never in Call of Duty at that point. That mode was Nazi zombies. Perhaps more interesting is the fact that Mark Lamia, one of the heads at Treyarch, stated in the past that zombies almost didn't even make it into World at War, which of course would have meant by chain reaction that it never would have been in COD in general, and that's so weird to think about. It was originally just supposed to be a side project that he himself was working on for fun, but after other developers at Treyarch and some of the staff at Activision played it, they implored him to put it in the game, which he did, and the rest is history. But I'm not stopping there. Come on, you see this video's length. I'm currently thinking of what Call of Duty as a franchise would be like had zombies never been in it, and honestly it sounds a lot worse and less playable, especially Black Ops 3. During the days of COD 4 and World at War, COD as a franchise was more above and beyond than anything from the franchise before or since. The original zombies maps were a lot more atmospheric than they are now, and with that, let me get into that. Upon World at War's launch in 2008, the first map was Nach der Untoten, German for Night of the Living Dead, a reference to the 1968 film with the same name by George Romero, which is also one of the most influential films in general and probably the top reason zombies are as prevalent in our culture today. Nach der Untoten was a very simple map and also a reward for the player finishing the single-player campaign. It was very atmospheric, and within minutes you were immersed into the vulnerability of the mute marine you were playing. The setting of the map was a bunker in an airfield, and that's what many people actually tend to forget about this map, is that it's just an altered version of the map Airfield from multiplayer. The map was a bunker where you just blocked off entry points for the zombies to get in, and when there are too many of them for the entry points to hold, then you just start killing them anyway. Compared to other zombies maps that would follow this, Nach's progression is of significantly less depth, but it's still serviceable. You have to understand the novelty of the first ever zombies map. Players weren't really looking to progress through the map and become a demigod throughout, they were just looking to survive. There are only two other areas of Nacht you can even explore anyway. There's the upstairs area that has a good camping spot in the bar, then you have the other smaller room which on the wall has the Thompson, the double barrel shotgun, and a thing called the mystery box, which you could spend 950 points on to get a random weapon out of, which included something that you could get by chance called the ray gun. I wouldn't honestly say that Noct has aged absolutely perfectly, but it's very respectable for what it is, being the first ever Zombies map and laying the groundwork for all the maps to come after it. The map is also just still pretty fun, especially the World at War version when you're trying to challenge yourself for high rounds but there's no perks. People really like this whole Nazi zombies thing that Treyarch was doing, and the success of Noct guaranteed more maps. So work on the second map began, and on March 19, 2009, the second map, Verrucht, was released. Verrucht was a reimagining of the multiplayer map Asylum within Zombies, and already this map was a significant improvement on Noct. To start off, it was more expansive. The map was bigger and there were more areas to explore, as well as being the first map to have a power switch, the first map to have an electric trap, and being the first map to have an Easter egg song being Lullaby of a Dead Man, and that song fucking slaps. This map also probably has the creepiest atmosphere of any Zombies map ever, and perhaps most importantly, this was the first Zombies map to ever include perks. It's the classic four in this map, the ones that everybody knows. They're so well known, iconic even. There's Juggernog, or often shortened to Jug, which doubled your health. Quick Revive, which actually didn't do anything solo in World at War, but in co-op it revived your teammates faster. Double Tap, which increased the fire rate of whatever weapon you were using, and then there's Speed Cola, which increased your reload speed. A critique I can give Verrucht is the fact that due to its corridor-based linearity, it's a lot less open than Noct, and it's a lot easier to turn a corner and get hit by accident. It's a lot more narrow, but hey, that might just be me bitching. It does make it a lot harder to get high rounds on Verrucht. Add to that the fact that the movement in this game is very janky, and also the engine is very outdated. Still, I'd actually say that Verrucht, as far as design goes, holds up better than most, actually. I feel like Verrucht is one of the easier maps to remake, because I feel like remaking it in any new engine kind of makes it just feel more and more timeless to me. I don't know. This map is far, far from perfect, but just like Noct, it laid the groundwork for future Zombies maps to follow in its footsteps. Speaking of future Zombies maps, World at War's second map pack was released on June 11th, 2009, and included amongst a few multiplayer maps was the third Zombies map, Shino Numa, and this map is fucking awesome. This map was pretty different than both Noct and Verrucht respectively, but it still held its own. First off, and easily most importantly, Shino Numa was the first map to have characters in it, as well as the characters we've come to know and love over the years. All distinct from one another. Richtofen, the German scientist, who's actually also really cool, that's partially responsible for the zombie apocalypse. Dempsey, the tough and badass oorah American Marine. Nikolai, the drunk Russian soldier always craving a vodka, and in my opinion, he's easily the funniest out of everybody.
Oh look! Our mighty Bushido warriors surrounded again! Hey!
Then there's Takio, who in my opinion is the weakest character, who really doesn't add anything to my overall experience like the other three do. What made this so important was actually two things. One was that with Noct and Verrucht, both of the maps before this, the characters weren't really characters, but rather just silent marines that didn't really actually serve a purpose. They were kinda just there to give the players a character model, whereas these characters gave new life to the mode that we hadn't seen before. The other thing that made this so important was the fact that after this map, all these characters would go literally everywhere across time and space, but that's me getting ahead of myself. This was also the first occurrence of the playable character in a Call of Duty game having in-gameplay dialogue in general, actually. As far as setting goes, Shino Numa, rather than being in a German bunker or insane asylum, was in a Japanese swamp and the most open, expansive map of all the World at War maps. Much like Verrucht, the classic 4 perks were still included, but progression in general, especially compared to Zombies maps now, feels completely bare bones. Despite that, Shino Numa is also pretty well known for being one of the easiest Zombies maps of all time. It's easily the easiest in World at War. Depending on how good you are, you could get to a super high round without trying that hard at all. The Easter egg song in Shino Numa was the one, which fit the atmosphere in the map absolutely flawlessly. These first 3 maps represent Zombies at their most simplistic to me, and with that said, let me transition into the 4th and final World at War map. On August 6, 2009, Map Pack 3 for World at War was released, and inside it was World at War's Zombies finale, Der Reese. This is by far objectively the best map in World at War, and still one of the best Zombies maps of all time in general. It's just that good. To start, the characters from Shino Numa returned, and also Treyarch gave the players more to do. This map introduced a very new and innovative feature to Zombies, where the player had to link 3 teleporters to a mainframe in the map's starting area, each within 30 seconds, and if you could do it in time, it introduced a machine called Pack-a-Punch, where you could spend 5,000 points to put one of your weapons in there and upgrade it to the point where when it comes out, it's basically an entire entirely new weapon. This map also introduced the Wonderwaff, or as I called it when I was younger, the Wonder Waffle. It also brought back the same perks from Verrucht and Shinonuma, and the Easter egg beauty of Annihilation is one of the best. The only actual legitimate problem with Der Riese that I have is that World at War's version in specific is still pretty glitchy. You'd honestly have a better experience playing the Black Ops 1 version or the Giant in Black Ops 3. This map was an outright revolution and a spectacular ending to World at War Zombies, which clearly left a lasting impression on a lot of people, especially the developers at Treyarch. When ranking all the maps in World at War from worst to best, I'll consider it this way. To start off, Nocturne Toten comes in last. It's not a bad map, it's just that it's aged pretty poorly, and also all the maps to come after it in this game did it better. Verrucht is the same way, albeit slightly less so I'll put it above Noct. Shinonuma was a modest improvement on both of those, as well as being very innovative and nice, so I'll put it in second. Then Der Riese is a fucking knockout and by far the best map in World at War. I honestly believe that World at War was a great starting point for this mode, but we would go way, way further from there. 2 years after World at War came out, Treyarch's next Call of Duty game, Call of Duty Black Ops, released on November 9th, 2010. Now, this was a great game all around, with everything included, but oh my god, it's zombies, dude. Black Ops 1 has my favorite iteration of zombies of any of the games in the series, and after what I'm about to tell you, it won't be hard to see why. This game's zombies raised the bar so much that in my opinion, 10 years later, it still has not been topped. I mean, there is not a single dull map in this entire fucking game. For starters, this game launched with 2 maps, and 3 if you count Dead Ops Arcade, which not everybody does. In fact, most people probably don't, but whatever. This is where zombies as a mode began to be taken more seriously, and also where the story started to take off as well. I can almost guarantee you that if there is any reason zombies has been as prevalent as it has been in Call of Duty over the past 10 years, it's because of this game. This is also where I think the tone of zombies was permanently set. One of the most underrated factors on why zombies works as well as it does is the fact that you're not supposed to take it seriously, and it wears its charm on its sleeve. It's meant mainly for fun. The premise of 5 would have absolutely killed the map had the tone been any different than it was. You think the idea of John F. Kennedy teaming up with Fidel Castro to kill zombies in the Pentagon is something Treyarch wants you to take seriously? And ironically enough, tone is one of the biggest problems with a lot of zombie apocalypse stories that happen now. One of the reasons that the newer seasons of The Walking Dead are shit is because the tone makes it boring. They've tried to keep it so gloomy and depressing the whole time and never change any of it up, and I'm not saying that The Walking Dead shouldn't be, but it's been the same the entire time. They'll have Negan spill Glenn's guts out onto the ground and then say, look how edgy we are. It's been done by basically every other post-apocalyptic story known to man, and this is one of the only examples I can think of that offers something different. So with that said, let me talk about Black Ops 1's innovations and also its maps. New perks in Black Ops 1 included Mule Kick, which allowed you to carry 3 weapons, Stamina Up, which increases your running speed, PhD Flopper, which reduces explosive and fall damage, and Deadshot Daiquiri, which helps with headshots. So first off, as I said earlier, Black Ops 1 launched with 2 maps, 3 if you count Dead Ops Arcade, and the first one I want to talk about out of those 3 is Kino der Toten. Kino der Toten is German for Theater of the Dead, and with that you can likely guess that Kino is a map set in an abandoned German theater, and in my opinion, this is easily the greatest zombies map of all time. It combines the simplicity of the first 3 World at War maps with a more step-by-step process that Der Riese had, all while setting the stage for Black Ops 1 Zombies in general, no pun intended, and it's awesome. For some reason, there are people out there who think this map is overhyped as shit, so while I explain why it's so good, let me also explain why it doesn't suck. 1. It's balanced. Kino is extremely well balanced and simple to play. Whenever you die, 99.9% of the time, it's your fault, with the exception of the occasional game-breaking bug. 2. The Thunder Gun is awesome and one of the coolest wonder weapons ever. 3. 115 is badass. 4. The design. Kino der Toten from a layout perspective is now super iconic, and I think it absolutely deserves it. I think it's the quintessential zombies map for that very reason. 5. It reintroduces the same characters from the last game with the same humor and charm and wit. Black Ops 1 also gives Quick Revive actual use in solo. Whereas you played solo in World at War and if you bought it, it did absolutely nothing, in Black Ops 1 it actually has use, giving you a self-revive, but you can only use it for up to 3 times, so you have to be strategic with it. There isn't really much more to to be said about Kino that everybody else doesn't already know. It's the quintessential Zombies map and in my opinion the greatest in the mode's entire history, but there's still another launch map, so let's get into that. 5. 5 was a map set in the Pentagon, where the playable characters were Fidel Castro, Robert McNamara, Richard Nixon, and of course, my boy, John F. Kennedy.
I said, are certain to miss the future.
5 was a good map and did a lot of innovations for zombies, doing things that we hadn't seen in the mode yet before, particularly being the first map to have a boss round. 5's boss was the Pentagon Thief, who would steal your weapons, and it was super irritating. But while 5 is a great map, it also has issues of its own. Remember how I had a problem with Verrucht and how narrow it seemed? Well, 5 runs into a lot of the same issues, particularly in the nerve center. Also, very much because of the Pentagon Thief, it's also very hard to get high rounds on this map sometimes, even with a full set of perks and Pack-a-Punch. Other than that, it's a really good map that I absolutely love, it's just not as good as some of the other maps. This of course leads me to Ascension. DLC Pack 1 for Black Ops 1 was released on February 1st, 2011, and in it we got Ascension. Ascension was a great map with a straightforward progression system and an amazing aesthetic and color scheme. I still think it looks really good when you first turn on the power and colors start to appear. The guide to Pack-a-Punch is fairly well formatted and it's very simplistic. Perks are fairly easy to obtain. Like most maps, Quick Revive is literally just sitting there in the starting room waiting for you to get it. Ascension is an amazing map with an awesome setting that I'll get into in a second, but there's one thing that I absolutely detest and makes me almost want to never play this map again. Those are the Space Monkeys. I fucking detest these things. Basically, they come in on what would normally be just your typical dog round and they come in to steal your perks. This would at the very least be acceptable, but the thing is, I don't think there's a single way you can get through the entirety of a monkey round without losing any of your perks. At first I'm thinking, nah, I'm just bad. Then I started thinking, wow, this is actually pretty hard. And that thought kept going until I realized that it was literally impossible to get through one of the monkey rounds without losing at least one perk. It almost ruins the map for me, but not quite. It's a great map in every other respect, and in my opinion, one of the more underrated Zombies maps. The idea of a Zombies map set in a Soviet nuclear testing ground just sounds really cool to me, and I don't entirely know why. This map doesn't really get the recognition I think it deserves, but that's probably due in part to the other maps overshadowing it. Speaking of other maps, let me use that last audio clip to transition into the next map. Black Ops got its second DLC pack on May 3rd, 2011, and inside of it was the game's fourth Zombies map, which would go down in history as Call of the Dead, and I'm just going to say it right now, this map is legendary. The premise is that years after the events of the Zombies storyline concluded, George Romero, the proclaimed father of the Zombies film, is directing a Zombies film based on the information he researched on the Zombies storyline. You play as the cast members playing themselves. The characters being real-life actors like Danny Trejo, famous for being in Heat, Sarah Michelle Gellar from the Grudge films, Robert Englund, famous for his role as Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and Michael Rooker, famous for his role as Meryl in The Walking Dead, which is ironic, but you know what's even more ironic? He also voiced Harper in the campaign for Black Ops 2. But anyways, Call of the Dead is just everything a Zombies map should be. Challenge, fun, a great Easter egg song in Not Ready to Die, and amazing wit from the cast of talented actors playing themselves. It did introduce dead shit Daiquari, as I like to call it, which is one of my least favorite perks of all time, but I can forgive it. It also introduced the VR-11 as the map's wonder weapon, and a really good wonder weapon, mind you. This map is absolutely spectacular, and if you haven't already played it, you definitely should, but that leads me into talking about this map's biggest learning curve. George Romero. George Romero is the boss in Call of the Dead, and oh my god, it's just too much. I'm up for a challenge. I've beaten Halo 2 on Legendary by myself almost twice now, but Jesus Christ, this is ridiculous. His health is multiplied by the combined amount of 4 players. I'd be fine if he came in after I already Pack-a-Punched, but he's right there at the start on round 1. Come on! This map is amazing and easily top 10 Zombies maps material, but George Romero is so annoying and such a pain to get through and I hate it. Other than that, I love Call of the Dead and I'd recommend it to any of you so long as you can properly avoid George Romero. Nothing says I feel super vulnerable right now like spawning in Call of the Dead with an M1911 and no perks and seeing George Romero sitting right in front of you with his fucking lightning axe at multiplied health. Anyways, besides George Romero, many people, myself included, fucking loved Call of the Dead, so there were more to come. Nearly 2 full months after Call of the Dead came out on June 28th, 2011, Treyarch released DLC Pack 3 for Black Ops, which included the 5th Zombies map, Shanghai. Shangri-La. It took the characters we knew and loved and put them in the fictional mountain range in the Himalayas by the same name. Now, what I'm about to tell you doesn't really matter all that much into the overall quality of a Zombies map, but Shangri-La easily has the best aesthetic or color scheme of any Zombies map ever. A big problem I have nowadays while playing BO1 Zombies maps and looking at them through fresh eyes is they all look so brown and bland. Shangri-La never had that problem. It was always nice, it was always colorful. The original version from Black Ops 1 has aged a bit, but it still looks pretty good today, I can't lie. The map itself is pretty well designed, but it does feel pretty narrow at points, particularly in the underground portion. Easily the worst part about Shangri-La was that they brought back the monkeys from Ascension, but instead of stealing your perks this time, they had something different. They'll sit there staying on the stairs that lead up to the Pack-a-Punch machine, and you can kill them in one hit with basically anything. Instead of stealing perks, they steal your power-ups, basically, which isn't as bad as the ones who would steal your perks in Ascension, honestly. The monkeys don't really ruin Shangri-La for me like they do a lot of people. With Shangri-La, as long as you know what you're doing, you're fine, whereas Ascension, it's literally impossible to savor all of your perks in the monkey rounds. The map was never unplayable to me, but that's where I bring in the problem with Shangri-La. And the issue with Shangri-La lies in standard. Up to this point, we had seen a knockout of consecutive releases in Zombies maps that Treyarch had given us. Derice, Kino, 5, Ascension, Call of the Dead, and this was the first map that really didn't feel like anything super special. I know it did to a lot of people, but to me, it didn't really offer me anything that the other maps didn't already do better. It's not a bad map, but it's definitely one of the weaker ones in Black Ops 1. And with that said, let me transition into talking about the final map of Black Ops 1. On August 23rd, 2011, Treyarch dropped the fourth and final DLC pack for Black Ops entitled Resurrection. This DLC pack is one of only 2 DLC packs ever in the history of Call of Duty to be exclusively made for zombies. For starters, they gave us all the World at War maps and put them in this game, slightly enhancing the experience of each one. They put Mule Kick and Knocked, they made all the maps in general, especially Derice, a lot less glitchy and more playable, and they gave us an original map called Moon. You start off on Earth at Area 51, where alternating perks and Pack-a-Punch happen to be, but then you use the teleporter to get to the moon. This map is pretty good, but there are some certain things about it that I absolutely fucking despise, and this is probably Black Ops 1's worst map. For starters, there's the astronaut. If you come in close contact with him, he'll grab you, bear hug you, throw you around, and in the process steal all of your perks. I can only buy Quick Revive up to 3 times, assbag. Also, the idea of alternating perks on a map like Moon absolutely enrages me. I could be going on the teleporter to grab Jug, but then forget it was already there with me when I spawned on round 1, so then when I get there, it's suddenly replaced by Speed Cola, and then I have to go back, go through all of the work again, and then when I finally get Jug, I get ass-raped by the fucking astronaut who steals it. Hey man, you want a hug? No, I don't want a hug from you, fucking asshole! That's a brief summary and dialogue to my thoughts on the astronaut and sometimes just Moon in general. This map is still pretty good, but it's unrelentingly painful to play. I do think it's a fun map, especially when playing in co-op, and the Easter egg where Richtofen blows up the Earth is pretty cool, but its issues can't go ignored. Ranking Black Ops 1 Zombies maps was really difficult to do, because all of them are solid at the very least. Then some of them are just outright brilliant, so not counting the re-releases of the World at War maps, here we go. I'd say Moon is at the lowest. It's a fun map and a pretty good map, but it is held back by its issues. Shangri-La is pretty good, just not as good as all the other maps I'm going to rank before it. 5 is great and very innovative. Ascension is awesome and very unique. Call of the Dead to this day still probably has the best premise for a Zombies map I've played, and Kino der Toten is just my favorite Zombies map in general, so there you have it. Black Ops 1 Zombies was really good, which left a lot of people wondering where we would go from here, and that would be answered soon enough. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 came out on November 13th, 2012. Many of you know how much I love this game to death in general, but also some of you may know that I'm not really the biggest fan of its zombies. It's still okay, don't get me wrong, like it's leagues better than BO4 zombies, and maybe better than World at War zombies, but when you compare it to Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3, it doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. It's even more disappointing when you consider that this was following up Black Ops 1 and how good zombies was in that game, where even the less good maps were still really good. I'll quit bitching, and before I get into the maps, maps, I'll talk about some of the innovations that this game gave for zombies overall. For starters, I know this is going to be a weird thing to praise it for, but in my opinion, the perk icons in Black Ops 2 are easily the best perk icons in the history of zombies in general. I just love that war-torn, battle-damaged look they have to them. I think it looks really good. There weren't a whole lot of new perks introduced in Black Ops 2, but the main one to keep note of was Electric Cherry. What Electric Cherry did was basically send off a shockwave whenever you reloaded that stunned any zombies around you. Black Ops 2 also introduced these really weird experimental side modes for zombies like Grief and Turned. They understandably never really went anywhere and never featured in another game after this. With all that admin out of the way, let's get into the maps. Motherfucker, we're back here again, aren't we? This game launched with one map, and that was Transit. Transit is notorious for being the worst zombies map of all time, and they're right. This map is a fucking atrocity. For those of you who never got to experience Transit while it was around, I'll explain it this way. Hey man, should we create a well-structured, well-designed map that people really enjoy and like that isn't bounded by a bunch of useless shit? No! Let's take all the shitty elements of zombies that people don't like and make it the entire map. It also doesn't help how massive Transit actually is and how the useless bus is like your only means of transportation to get around anywhere. It's so bad that Treyarch literally released separate parts of the map as standalone maps just to make Transit more playable. You'll experience them a lot better on your own rather than playing Transit in full, especially Town. Town is pretty fun, especially when you're playing with friends and don't have money to buy the DLCs. A while back I played this map again with a friend as a joke, but I also wanted to go back and see if it was really as bad as I remembered, and no, it's actually worse. This is about as pretentious as a zombies map can possibly get. The last time I played this map, I went into it thinking it would at least be so bad it's good, but within the first few minutes, I was squirming in my chair ready to stop playing and go to another map. In short, fuck you Transit, I hate you. Then there's Nuketown Zombies, which also launched with Black Ops 2 just as a paid DLC pack. I can't lie to you, I used to hate this map and think it was a waste of my $5, but in the past like 2 years or so, I actually have grown to appreciate it a lot more. This map wasn't meant to be a huge, ginormous fucking giant map with a huge emphasis on turning on the power and getting pack-a-punch and hunting for a bunch of parts. This was just meant to be fun and simple. A lot like the maps in World at War, kind of a throwback in a sense. Now that doesn't mean this map doesn't come without its bullshit, particularly how closed in it feels at points. But this map isn't fucking terrible like everybody treats it to be. This map is a throwback to the World at War maps of old. A close quarters environment with a limited amount of perks and no pack-a-punch. There isn't really much more that needs to be said about Nuketown Zombies. There isn't really much that I can say, so with that said, let me transition into the next map. Treyarch released DLC Pack 1 for Black Ops 2 on January 29, 2013, and the zombies map in it was Die Rise, and in all honesty, this might actually be worse than Transit. In terms of design, it absolutely is. This is such a poorly designed, lackluster, condescendingly piece of shit map that I cannot leave it alone. It's the easiest map to die from fall damage in, which makes PhD Flopper not being there make even less sense. If I could very easily die from fall damage, it should be there. Even worse, this map wasn't anything special at all. Like, you couldn't get enjoyment out of how bad it is, it's just fucking boring. At this particular point in time, Black Ops 2 Zombies wasn't really looking too good. This brings me to the second half. So the first half of Black Ops 2 Zombies was Treyarch getting themselves in a position where they were basically completely fucked, and this second half consisted of them trying to unfuck themselves and move on toward Black Ops 3. On April 16th of 2013, Treyarch released DLC Pack 2 for Black Ops 2 entitled Uprising, and inside of it was a little map called Mob of the Dead, and oh my god, it was fucking amazing. The premise of Mob was that 4 prisoners from Alcatraz would try to escape amidst a zombie apocalypse while also finding parts for a plane that would lead them to their figurative escape that's really just a bridge where Pack-a-Punch happens to be. There's so much character and fun to be had brimming in this map. The boss Brutus is now very well known because of this map, and the story of 4 prisoners escaping Alcatraz to get escaping to the free world is very compelling. The afterlife feature was also something very new and innovative, and it served a purpose for Mob of the Dead. Instead of one sole definitive power switch, you have to go to different places to turn the power on to get double tap or the gondola individually. You could call that tedious, but it really isn't that difficult at all. I also love the atmosphere that Mob gives off. It's probably the scariest zombies map of all time in my opinion. Just something I thought about when I was younger that I still notice today. I don't think this map's atmosphere really gets the recognition it deserves. I mean, sure, there are some pretty eerie zombies maps that came before this, notably Verrucht, but it's just the atmosphere in Mob that I don't think gets the recognition it deserves. As well as a lot of the dialogue in Mob of the Dead, something I have to take note of. All of these characters have some of the funniest dialogue that I have ever heard in a video game, period. Honestly, Mob of the Dead is fucking legendary, and if there's any reason you're buying Black Ops 2 for zombies, it's should be for this map. After Mob of the Dead was insanely well received, Treyarch knew they were on a roll, so on July 2nd, 2013, they released DLC Pack 3 for Black Ops 2, and inside of it was the map Buried. This map seems to be a forgotten gem from Black Ops 2, which is a shame, because this is actually a pretty good map. It's super underrated. It took place in an abandoned western town, which was kinda unique, because Zombies really hadn't done that at that point. Also, the Easter egg song, Always Running, is my favorite in Zombies history. I also do like how there are multiple different ways you can explore and open up the map. Buried is a pretty wide map that encourages exploring, and I like that. I also find it funny that this was really the only well-received Victus map. I find it funny how people absolutely hated Transit and Die Rise, with good reason. They're awful maps, but at least it ended off okay with Buried. It seems with Mob and Buried that Treyarch were actually working on getting themselves out of the shithole that was the first half of Black Ops 2 Zombies. And with that said, let me transition into the final map for Black Ops 2, which many people consider to be the pinnacle of Zombies. DLC Pack 4 for Black Ops 2, titled Apocalypse, released on August 27, 2013, and inside it was the finale for Black Ops 2 Zombies, titled Origins. People hold this map to such high of a regard, to the point where criticizing it is like some huge event. Like it's considered a bold move that could get you publicly executed by the community. So what's my opinion on this map? Because that matters so much apparently. Yeah, this map's really good. To start off, Treyarch brought back the original cast of characters, Edward Richtofen, Tank Dempsey, Nikolai Belinsky, and Takeo Masaki, but there was a twist. These weren't really the same characters from World at War and Black Ops 1. I mean, they were, but they weren't, and I know that sounds confusing. It's confusing to me too at points. I'll try and tell you the best I can. See, the versions of these characters from World at War and Black Ops were more stereotypical and comedic. They didn't really have as much of an overall character and just stuck to their overall traits. These were the 1.0 variants of the characters. The 2.0 variants of the characters introduced in Black Ops 2 are much less dimensional and have more overall character and get fleshed out and they're less comical. That doesn't mean they aren't comical at all, but certainly less so than they were in World at War and Black Ops. I mean, Dempsey isn't screaming every single line he has anymore. Nikolai isn't really drunk anymore. Richtofen is a lot more sensible and a lot more human than he was in his 1.0 variant. Takeo's mostly the same, but he seems to have dropped the comedy, which is good because Takeo's example of comedy is one of the unfunniest characters in video game history that I've ever played. Origins is set in the trenches of a World War I battlefield, and it's absolutely awesome. This map also introduced the Perca-Cola Wonder Fizz machine, which would give you a random perk, essentially the mystery box just for perks, in which I would get Electric Cherry 90% of the time. The map is awesome and an easy top 10 Zombies maps of all time. The only thing I can genuinely say I dislike about Origins is activating the power stations just due to how stressful it is. The Panzer is likely the greatest boss in COD Zombies history. This map solidified more than anything that even though Black Ops 2 Zombies wasn't anything super special compared to Black Ops 1, maps like Mob of the Dead and Origins made up for the dumbass shit big time. Just an excellent, compelling map all around. When it comes to ranking Black Ops 2, it is a bit easier than it is to rank Black Ops 1, so without further ado, here we go. Also, I won't be counting the parts of Transit that were made into their own individual maps, because I don't think they count. I'm just going to rank Transit as a whole on here. Die Rise is one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I'm putting it at the lowest at number 6. Transit is like a mutated chicken sandwich, but it is actually, I think, marginally better than Die Rise, so we'll put it above. Nuketown Zombies is a nice little throwback to the old simplistic World at War maps, but I feel like it kind of came out 5 years too late. Buried was super underrated and was really good. Origins was quite literally the map that altered Zombies and is really well designed and really good, so I'll put it at number 2. And then Mob of the Dead over here is something else entirely, and in my opinion, the best map in Black Ops 2. With Black Ops 2 over, we had a lot on our minds for what would be Treyarch's next game, and that would be answered soon enough. On November 6, 2015, Call of Duty Black Ops 3 was released worldwide, and this is where many people think Treyarch gave their best effort with Zombies. It's easily the most player-friendly version of Zombies, I think. I mean, everywhere you look, there is nothing but content and things for people to do. This game was the last Call of Duty game to have a last-gen port, and I don't really think it was that bad. Oh my god, what the fuck is that? Never mind. As per usual, I'll start off by talking about the innovations that Black Ops 3 gave, and then also talk about the maps. The big new perk in Black Ops 3 was Widow's Wine, which I always pronounced as Windows Wine when I was younger. The perk would shield you and also trap a bunch of zombies in a web, and it was pretty cool. Also, they brought back the Perca-Cola Wonder Fizz machines from Origins, and perhaps the biggest innovation for Black Ops 3 Zombies was Gobblegums. Basically, what Gobblegums were they had these little dispenser machines across the map, and you would get one free one per round, and they give you slight enhancements that ranged from sort of slightly enhancing to literally broken. At least they actually ranged into two different categories. The less game-breaking ones that were just more slight enhancements were just the regular classic Gobblegums, and the game-breaking ones were the Mega Gums. Some of the regular Gobblegums that you just got by progressing were things like Swordflay, which multiplied your melee attack by 5. There's also Anywhere But Here, which teleports you to any completely random location, which is very useful if you're prone to getting cornered like I often am. Then there's In Plain Sight, which basically takes zombie blood from Origins and then makes it into its own Gobblegum. To give you an example of some of the Mega Gobblegums and how fucking broken they are, Perkaholic literally gives you every single perk on the entire map, so that's all I really need to say. Anyways, with that out of the way, let me talk about the maps for Black Ops 3 Zombies. Once again, we launch with two maps, one on disc, one on DLC, and both of them actually complement each other really well. First off was Shadows of Evil, a 1940s Lovecraftian map with a spectacular aesthetic and that I now appreciate a lot more than I used to. I mean, sure, you can call the Cthulhu rituals tedious, but this map itself is actually really fun and creative, and you can tell it's something that Treyarch took a lot of pride in making. The problem with Shadows of Evil that makes a lot of people not like it is that it really isn't that player-friendly, and it's kind of difficult to get around if you don't know what you're doing, but then in contrast, there's a very familiar map known as The Giant, the remake of Derice. Sure, you had to pay $5 extra to play it, but once you do, it's a spectacular remake of a great map, and it's definitely worth playing. The thing that makes these two maps launching alongside each other so perfect is the fact that they complement each other so well. If you're a fan of the more complex quest-style Zombies format, then Shadows of Evil is for you. But if you're more a fan of the more classic style of Zombies maps, then The Giant is your go. This game has enough to satisfy both parties, and that's great, and it's something that I wish these games would do more often. There isn't really much about The Giant that I can say that I didn't already say when I talked about Derice earlier, so with that said, let's move on to the next map. Treyarch dropped DLC Pack 1 for Black Ops 3 on February 2nd, 2016, which included Der Eisendrache, German for the Iron Dragon. This might be my favorite map in Black Ops 3. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Let's get into talking about it so I can explain why it might or might not be. Set in a castle, the premise of Der Eisendrache was obtaining bows through tasks to be able to kill the Panzer and make it through the boss round, and this is probably Black Ops 3's best original map, as I just said. The bow that basically every single person looks toward getting at first is the Wrath of the Ancients. Getting the Wrath of the Ancients requires you to feed 10 dead zombies to 3 different dragon heads, each across different places of the map, and while it does kind of sound dragging while it goes on, it does feel rewarding, I assure you. Once you get through it, you have a fantastic map to try and survive in. Trying to get the Void Bow often comes off as extremely frustrating, but the other ones are all useful in themselves, so you don't have to use the Void Bow. I'm honestly not entirely sure why I love Der Eisendrache so much, but I think the main reason is how rewarding it feels. It's just a really fun map, especially with friends. So let me use this as a transition phase over to the next map in Black Ops 3. Anyways, on April 19th, 2016, DLC Pack 2 for Black Ops 3 came out, and it included the map Zetsubou no Shima, and I'll say this right now, Black Ops 3 could have been maybe as good as Black Ops 1 had it not been for this map. And that's because Zetsubou no Shima is really bad. This map is really poorly designed, the Thrasher is an awful boss that's only there to irritate you, the map is far too dark and I can't see shit, especially for Black Ops 3. Zetsubou no Shima is Japanese for Island of Despair, which is ironic because that's exactly what this map is. Also, setting up on Zetsubou is like trying to change Kongs in Donkey Kong 64. It's actually one of the most tedious things I've ever done in a video game, but let me quit my bitching and explain why. Zetsubou no Shima requires you to sprint back and forth, open door after door, spend deck of points after deck of points just to get the power on until, oh wait, no, you have to do all this extra shit now that you shouldn't have to do on a normal map. All this shit more and more, and the setup process for an experienced player could take up to an hour to complete. I've set up on the Giant in the first 10 minutes, what is this? All the essential parts of the map, the zombie shield, pack-a-punch, jug, all these essential parts of your typical zombies map are locked behind the worst, most tedious, and mentally draining setup process you can possibly do. I'll be nice and say something I like. Even though the map is super dark and I can't see shit, I actually do like how the trees and environment look at points. This map is easily the worst map in Black Ops 3, but I can forgive it as a game for this, seeing as everything else was really good in Zombies. Which leads me to the next map for Black Ops 3. On July 12th, 2016, Treyarch released DLC DLC Pack 3 for Black Ops 3, which included Gorod Krovi, a map set in Stalingrad meant to retrieve the soul of Nikolai 1.0, and I'll say this right up now, Gorod Krovi is a fucking banger. It's super fun and enjoyable, there's so much to do, they made the setup process less tedious, and oh, I can actually see, unlike Zetsubo when I'm playing with maxed out brightness and a maxed out FOV. They just made Gorod more fun. It was always so cool to me getting to ride a dragon over to the area where you grab Pack-a-Punch. I actually remember seeing the trailer for Gorod Krovi before they released it, and it was super cool. One of my best memories of Black Ops 3 in general is actually just spinning around in circles firing an L4 Siege on this map when it came out. This map is awesome, and the only issue I have with it is that sometimes I think it's too big. Other than that, I absolutely love it. It's an awesome map. So with that said, let me transition into Black Ops 3's supposed finale. After Gorod Krovi, Treyarch released DLC Pack 4 for Black Ops 3 on September 6, 2016, and inside it was the finale to Black Ops 3 Zombies, sort of. Revelations. Revelations isn't really like your typical Zombies map, but rather a mashup map. A mashup of previously released maps across various different games. The maps in question being Nacht der Untoten, Mob of the Dead, Origins, Shangri-La, Kino der Toten, Der Eisendrache, Verrückt, all these maps mashed into one, and they fit really well, actually. Revelations is often criticized for not being original and only having 2 original areas on the entire map, but I don't mind it personally. What honestly gets me with Revelations is the little details, things that don't really matter all that much, but once you see them or hear them, you're like, oh look, they did that thing. For example, if you die on Nacht, instead of getting the regular death song that you would get with this map, Lullaby of a Dead Man plays. It also serves as a nice throwback, going back to these older maps while still retaining the old Black Ops 3 Zombies identity. I also like how some of these maps fit so well next to each other, especially ones that you wouldn't think would. For example, in terms of atmosphere, Origins and Mob of the Dead are like completely different maps, and you wouldn't think they would fit well right next to each other, but Revelations says, fuck that, yes they do, and they actually do. Overall, Revelations is really cool, and I think if you're a fan of Zombies, you should definitely play it. It's definitely worth your time. The weird thing this time is that Black Ops 3 Zombies wasn't done yet. After Revelations, it would be a bit before the next DLC, but we did have modded content to look forward to on PC, which is actually really cool, and let me go over some of that right now. Modded maps on the PC version were suddenly made a lot more accessible with the Steam Workshop. A lot of these maps are just dumb fun made for the purpose of being a meme, like Lego Jailbreak, Minecraft Zombies, or McDonald's. But then you have some of them that are like genuinely well made that could even surpass some of Treyarch's, like Leviathan, Stairs of Eminu, and Europa. But then, something historical happened. On May 4th, 2017, Zombies YouTuber JC Backfire uploaded a video to his channel titled Jason Blundell Arrives with Something Very Special. In this video, Jason Blundell visits JC's house to announce DLC Pack 5 for Black Ops 3, exclusively made for Zombies, entitled Zombies Chronicles. This DLC consisted of a collection of remasters for 8 different maps from World at War to Black Ops 2. Nacht der Untoten, Verrückt, Shino Numa, Kino der Toten, Ascension, Shangri-La, Moon, and Origins. The DLC launched May 15th, 2017 for PS4, and a month later on June 16th for Xbox One and PC. Ranking Black Ops 3 was a little bit easier than Black Ops 1, but not as easy as Black Ops 2, so here we go. Zombies Chronicles remasters and the Giant not included. Zetsubo no Shima is the worst, it comes in at the lowest, it's fucking tedious as shit. Gorod Krovi is amazing. Revelations is a nice fun mashup map and a great finale to Black Ops 3. Shadows of Evil is great and it's definitely worth playing and trying to get into. And then Der Eisendrache is my favorite. Honestly, Black Ops 3 is the most accessible Zombies, I think, and it's definitely the one I would have you start off with if you're trying to get into it. Alright, look, I know I said at the beginning of the video that I was going to dedicate an entire section of this video to non-Treyarch renditions of Zombies, but I don't want this video to really go on any longer than it already has to, and I have to get to BO4 Zombies, so I'm just gonna give you a lightning round with this real quick. Advanced Warfare Exo Zombies isn't really as good as I remember it, but it still has its moments. Infinite Warfare Zombies started off pretty promising, but then got shittier over time. I actually did a full-length review on Infinite Warfare, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts, just check out that video. And then World War II is a literal atrocity of a disappointment, so yeah. Alright, let's finish this. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was released on October 14th, 2018, and immediately a lot of things changed, especially as far as zombies was concerned. For starters, they gave us an entirely new perk system, completely removing Jug from the game, and instead the player starts off with 200 health. But instead of yelling about how the new perk system is awful like everybody else already has, I'm just going to skip straight to the maps to save your time. But before I do go over talking about the maps, I have to talk about something else that's integral to obtaining them. Black Ops 4 entirely changed the DLC module that had been the standard for Call of Duty for a decade. Whereas previous Call of Duty games had a season pass that had 4 subsequent DLCs that you could get separately for $15 each, Black Ops 4 introduced the Black Ops Pass, which had numerous different DLCs that you couldn't get without buying the entire pass for $50. With that said, Black Ops 4 launched with 4 maps, which sounds amazing at first, and it was the largest offering for a zombies map at launch ever, but then you realize what it actually is, and then the truth sets in. I guess I'll start off with what is easily the best map in Black Ops 4, that being 9. It introduced a whole new set of characters within the Chaos storyline, with new characters being Scarlet, Diego, Bruno, and Shaw, and while these characters aren't horrible, they aren't extremely memorable either and come off as poorly written at points to me. The map itself is set in a gladiatorial arena in ancient Rome, and it's fucking awesome. This is a great setting for a zombies map, even though it didn't seem like it before it came out. 9 is a really good map that did a great job trying to get around Black Ops 4's horrendous design philosophy. I can only imagine what this map would have been like with the classic perk system in Black Ops 3. Then in contrast, we have this piece of shit, Blood of the Dead. Blood of the Dead is quite possibly the most disappointing map in the history of Call of Duty Zombies. A lot of you probably know that I wasn't really excited for this game at all ahead of its release, but then when I heard they were doing a remake of Mob of the Dead, I was like, oh shit, okay, so zombies in this game is probably going to be great. And then it happened. When this game came out and I reviewed it, I gave this map a thumbs up because I had only played my first match and used it as gameplay, so I didn't really know what to make of it, but now that I've played multiple different matches of it, I can say that this is probably the most disappointing zombies map ever. So for starters, they removed the bridge and they just put Pack-a-Punch elsewhere, which made no sense. Also, they removed Afterlife, which was like one of the prime appeals of the original Mob of the Dead. Also, Richtofen's laboratory is useless. I understand it's important to the story, but in terms of the gameplay, it's completely worthless and means nothing, and if you really wanted to include it, you could just put it in a cutscene. This map is just not a worthy remake to Mob of the Dead. Coming up now, we have Voyage of Despair. Voyage of Despair is set on the Titanic and brings back the Chaos characters, and that's everything of any note I can really say on it. Let's move on. The next map is Classified. This map was a remaster of 5, and it actually isn't terrible. Like, it isn't the greatest thing of all time, but it also isn't the worst thing the human race has ever had to endure. Classified removed the Pentagon Thief, which I found to be surprisingly divisive. This map is pretty fun to play, but that's mostly just because if you know 5, then you know this map, because again, it's a remaster and it doesn't really change all that much. The first post-launch DLC map for Black Ops 4 was Dead of the Night, which Treyarch released to no marketing at all on December 11, 2018. Dead of the Night is a mansion map, and it is also a lot like most of the other maps in BO4. I enjoyed it my first few times playing it, but then eventually got bored of it due to its repetition. Anyways, the next map was released on March 26, 2019, and the map was Ancient Evil. I won't lie, okay, Ancient Evil's actually pretty okay. It ends off the Chaos storyline for Black Ops 4. It easily has the best atmosphere for any of Black Ops 4's maps. It isn't like top 10 zombies maps of all time material or anything like that, but it's certainly one of the better ones in this game. After Ancient Evil, Treyarch dropped Alpha Omega on July 9, 2019, a remake of Nuketown Zombies from Black Ops 2, but also expanding upon it and making it more like an actual zombies map. I can say that Alpha Omega was probably better than the original Nuketown from BO2 because again, it did feel more like an actual zombies map. It does still have its issues, particularly being on BO4 and having to deal with its messy game design. It is still serviceable, however, and it is one of the more fun maps in BO4, but with that said, let me lead into the finale of Zombies. Tag der Toten. On September 23rd, 2019, Tag der Toten was released as the final map for Black Ops 4 Zombies, as well as the final Ether storyline map in general, bringing an end to the saga that people had followed for over a decade. This map was a reimagining of Call of the Dead, and while I don't necessarily appreciate the fact that every Ether map in BO4 was a remake of some sort, I can admire how we got here. This map isn't terrible or anything, but it also isn't wonderful. It's alright, and it is very bittersweet. One of my favorite things about Tag der Toten is how instead of the cold, icy atmosphere atmosphere of the original Call of the Dead in Black Ops 1, Tag der Toten has a beautiful sunset metaphorical for the sun setting on the zombie storyline. In terms of ranking Black Ops 4 maps, this time I guess I have to count the remasters because they're literally half the fucking maps, so here we go. Blood of the Dead is a bitterly disappointing map, fuck it. If you ask me, Voyage of Despair is pretty much entirely worthless, and the more you play it, the worse it gets. Dead of the Night is okay, but it gets repetitive really quickly. Classified is good, I guess. Alpha Omega is pretty fun, I guess. It's a modest improvement on the original Nuketown from Black Ops 2. Tag der Toten is a nice end. Ancient Evil's pretty cool. Then 9 is great, and easily the best map in this game. It's really sad to see how far zombies fell with this game, but at the same time, I completely understand why. With Treyarch focusing most of their attention on Blackout and then most of the rest on just standard multiplayer, you can't really expect zombies to be fully developed and finished with all that attention being focused on the others because it doesn't have enough for zombies. Call of Duty Zombies is something that did and still does mean a lot of things to a lot of people. In a way, it's kind of like its own side piece now to the Call of Duty brand in general. It's a place where a lot of us made huge chunks of our childhoods, and for that we can thank it. Even with how much the mode diminished with BO4, I think it's fair to look back fondly on what was. This video is going to be super satisfying to get out for me. I have been working on it for the past month, and it's something that I've been desperately wanting to talk about for the past couple months. On a completely unrelated note, thank you guys again for 100 subs a couple weeks ago. It's still like mind-boggling to me that we actually hit it, and I just want to thank you guys for that. This video's gone on long enough, and I've said basically everything I need to say only after almost 50 minutes, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. My name is Johnny Seizure, and I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.